Okay, we're just going to give 10 seconds real quick just to make sure. Okay, so welcome everyone to the March 28th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Ethics. We haven't had too many meetings in the past year. So first, welcome to our new members, Anne, Michelle, and Catherine. And hello again to Pat. It's been a while.
Has been.
So did everyone have a chance to be able to view the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'll do is, since we don't have our chair here and Lori is also not here, we're going to do a roll call and just make sure that we have everybody. So we have a quorum. We have 4 members. So we have Pat Tony, just say here or present.
Here.
Michelle Sawyer.
Here.
Anne Wennestrand.
Here.
Catherine Williams.
Here.
Great. Okay. So again, welcome to all the new members. Thank you for serving. And we finally have close to a full board for the first time in a long time. So hopefully we won't have cancellations this year. We'll have meetings. I'm just going to see if there's any members of the public here to see if anyone would like to speak as to any items on the agenda. We're now a couple minutes into the meeting and we do not have any attendees. And so I'm just going to wait another 30 seconds and then we will close the public participation portion of this meeting. Okay, we still don't have any attendees, so I think it's safe to close public participation. Now, the acceptance of the minutes, we actually can't vote on them because I don't believe any of you were on the board in July of. Oh no, Pat Tony, you were there.
Yes.
So Pat, you are the only member. Did you see any changes on this 3-page document from our meeting on July 27, 2023, which was our last meeting?
I did not.
Okay. So if you could just move to approve the minutes, with no revisions.
I move to approve the minutes of July 27th of 23 with no revisions.
Great. And can someone second that? You won't be voting on it. You're just voting to move these minutes to be finalized.
I second that.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we can go past the minutes. And just so everyone's aware, if you wanted to see what happened at other meetings prior to this one, all of our meetings can be found on YouTube. And if you have difficulty finding them, please just let me know and I can send you the links. All right, so now we're on to old business. And the old business is to discuss the draft slides for concerning the education and training program that we're going to be putting together. So the plan is that we still have 4 slides left, which were attached to the agenda. When we're done doing them all, at the following meeting, I will put all the slides up so that members who were not there can take a look at all the slides. And in fact, I'll send them to you in advance. So you could take a look at all the other slides. And then once that's done, we're going to work on creating small, short YouTube clips for each of these PowerPoint slides for Norwalk residents, Norwalk employees, and Norwalk appointed and elected officials to review so that they can become more familiar with the Board of Ethics. I think the best way to start with the ones that we have left is probably to start with the easiest ones. So let's start with, and I'll share the screen in a second so everyone can see it. So there are 18 sections to Chapter 32 of the Code of Ethics, and we have 4 remaining. So I figured we'll start with the easiest 2 first, and then we'll try to maybe get 3 out of 4 done tonight. 32.12 is extremely long. So let's start with 32.9. So this is concerning specific violations, and you can see from our last meeting that where we discussed this, that this is a 2-page document. So I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to look at the first page, and you can see the suggestion that's in red. And why doesn't everyone take a look at it and let me know when you're ready, and I will move on to the second page for you all. Should I move on to the second page?
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know when you're all done, and then we can go back and discuss, try to remember what the suggestion was compared to what we have. Okay. So, I mean, as you can see, and then I'll leave it, I'm gonna set it up and then I'll let you guys discuss it. As you can see, there was a suggestion, the original draft of this was basically to take a lot of the language that's already located in section 32.9 and place it into this slide. And the counter suggestion, or the suggestion to revise it, was basically just say, see 32.9. So why don't you all discuss whether you like the original version, whether you like the brief version, revised version in red, or something in between.
There's part of me that almost would like to see it both of it. I mean, what's in red, I think the discussion that we had in the past was that the next 2 pages are a little bit complex, but
Mhm.
this just kind of defines it. If this is something you need, you should be able to find it in this section
Mhm.
rather than going to another document. I guess that's my only concern about it. Certainly it's in the section of the Code of Ethics.
Mhm.
You have to go to another document in order to see all of this. But maybe some clarification of the language that's in red, just to say here's what this is all about.
What does everyone else think about it?
I am more inclined, I agree with Pat. I think that having both of them, I'm not really inclined to take out all of the like more detailed stuff, even though it's a little, it's a lot to, to take in. I think that you need to leave, the explanation in there to have people be able to find it and read it if they have questions. I think it's, taking it out. We're not talking about taking it out. It's elsewhere. Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is the first
Um,
time seeing it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, so the short answer is that this is basically like a Cliff Notes version,
Mhm.
but
Of a much longer piece is what you're
yeah,
saying. Okay, all right.
not, and so it changes with each section. So some sections it's going to be Cliff Note version. Other sections, like specific violations, there's really not much to it except
Okay.
these definitions. So it's difficult to do less than what we're doing.
Okay.
Without having people I mean, some of them are like removal of original records. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
But other things do, I think, warrant an explanation. But let's see what everyone else thinks, and then I'll tell you what I think, and then you can discuss it further.
Right. So what I'm understanding is the verses means, and again, I'm just also seeing this,
Hmm?
That we would either just refer to section 32.9 of the code, or we would give these cliff notes, and perhaps they could be shortened or tightened up even
Sure.
more, is what it seems to me.
Yes.
You know, that that you could refer to the specific code of ethics, but we could also list, I guess that's what Melissa was saying too, both.
Yep.
With
Yep.
maybe some tightening up of the language.
Yep. Catherine, what are your thoughts? Anything?
And that's basically my thought. Because if someone wants to read a little more, they can go to the section to see it. But
Right.
it's a good reference to have that there's more in section 39, 32-9 of the Code of Ethics. So
I mean, so I agree with what you're all saying. I think that one of the suggestions, I think it's nice to identify up at the top, because people see 32.9 specific violations, and
Right.
it's kind of self-explanatory, but I think it's nice to have that first line that says
Correct.
we're going to be
Yeah.
discussing specific violations here.
Mhm.
Just to let people know, because sometimes your mind plays tricks on you. So I do like the
Mhm.
first sentence. I don't think we can just say go see 32.9. I think it defeats the purpose of the
Right.
PowerPoint slide when you're trying to
Yeah.
describe it.
correct.
I think it's nice to have something on the page when you're doing the YouTube clip, and you're going to be doing this, I think, similar to this, where you're sharing the screen. It's going to be nice to have this document up here so that when you're describing it, people can actually see it.
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
if you don't mind, I'll take out the second line if you guys are in agreement with that. That's in red.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, no, I agreed.
And what I'll do is, so as you can see, the first line is still in red. I'm going to take out suggestion. And when I amend this after our meeting, I'll amend this and I'll change it to regular black font as opposed to red.
Mhm.
So that if you guys approve this tonight, then this will be the final version. And then I'll just change it so that everything formats out. So do you guys as a group think that we should identify, so we have ordinances, we have removal of original records, access to information, and then we have whistleblower, violation of confidentiality. Do you think it makes sense to have these things still listed, and perhaps, as Anne suggested, tighten up the language or limit what we're saying so that people get the general idea of what we're talking about?
I mean, do we think there's anything in here you can really tighten? I mean, none of it seems particularly lengthy and wordy.
Right.
You know, is there anything really that we can take out that doesn't, you know, basically, you know, void the information we're trying to give them?
Fair question. Well, what I'll do is, I have this up on the screen for you guys, and I'll read each one, and you tell me whether you think that whether there's any kind of verbiage that you think we can remove. Ordinances. Willful violations of any provisions of, well, we have to fix the language here on this one, but
Mhm.
willful violations of any provisions of concerning the purchasing of supplies, materials, equipment, and services. So besides the fact that we have to change it to make it sound better, is there any part of this that you think we can remove?
I mean, I think you could just take out the word of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just put it back in, and I'm going to strike it for now, and then I'll strike it for now, so this way it shows up later. And I'll highlight it in yellow so I know how to get rid of it. Okay.
Full violation.
Anyone else have any, besides the of, anyone else have any other comments about this specific sentence or definition?
That seems succinct.
Okay. All right, next, removal, let me just stop this for a second, and let me just pull up 32.9 just to, just want to make sure that we didn't omit anything, because I didn't put these together prior board members.
Stage Prince.
Does the stenographer have a question? Her hand is raised.
Oh, hold on.
No, I don't. My hand should not be up.
Okay, hold on. Oh, hand is no longer up. Okay. So 32.9, we have ordinances, removal of records. So it looks like they followed. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And let's see if we have 7 here under 32.9.
Me too.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, great. All right, so let me share the screen again and we'll go to the next one. Share screen 32:9. Okay. Removal of original records. No officer or employee or former officer or employee shall take for personal or other non-city use any original records, files, or documents belonging to the city. With authorization, copies of non-confidential documents can be made available to the public. I don't know that we need the second sentence, but you guys tell me what you think about what I just read.
What you read, Brian, sounds clear, the first part. I would agree that probably that second bullet point is not needed.
Okay. Does anyone else think something else other than what Anne has said about that second bullet point under removal of original records?
No, it almost doesn't even, because it's talking about the public, not officers, employees, so it's almost not even relevant to that sentence.
Right. Okay, let me all right. And just so you guys know, in terms of procedure, when we're done making all the edits to this specific PowerPoint, we will then have you guys vote to say that these are the changes that you want. Okay. Access to information by Board of Ethics. No officer or employee shall deny access to information requested for an investigation or public hearing unless such information is exempt from disclosure or otherwise privileged under relevant federal, state, or local law. What do you guys think about that sentence? And I can give you a little bit more background on what they're saying here if you don't fully understand what they're talking about.
I actually think that it's a good statement
Okay.
and necessary.
Yeah. So just because we have a lot of new board members,
Mhm.
so basically the information that we're talking about is when an investigating panel has been impaneled as a result of an ethics complaint. And in that situation, 3 members of our Board of Ethics would perform an investigation and would request documents and request to speak with witnesses or people with information. And so that's talking about somebody, no officer or employee withholding the information from the board when they're conducting this investigation, which is mandated in our ordinance in Chapter 32, specifically Chapter 32:12. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments about this particular bullet point?
No, I think the bullet point is good. I do have a question about,
Sure.
is there somewhere that it says what is exempt from disclosure or otherwise privileged? Is that spelled out anywhere?
It is not. There could be many different situations where somebody could try to claim privilege, for example, attorney-client privilege or work
Okay.
product, or perhaps there's just the first thing that's popping in my mind is certain addresses or contact information for specific state or federal employees is protected from disclosure.
Okay.
Not so much in the investigating panel stage, which is privileged and confidential, but in a hearing board stage, if probable cause would be found, that becomes public.
Okay. All right.
There's too many situations and there's too many variables to list them.
Yeah.
It's more along the lines of we're just letting people know that there might be exceptions to this and letting people know that if they believe an exception exists, they can raise it. And then
Okay.
that would have to be further researched by myself as staff to the board or by somebody else in the office if I'm unavailable.
Okay. Otherwise, I think it's good.
Okay. Does anyone else
Mhm.
have any other comments before we move on?
No.
Okay. All right. So now we're on to page 2, whistleblower protection. Current or past officers and employees shall not retaliate against an individual in employment, benefits, or contracting as a result of that individual making an ethics complaint or providing truthful information as part of any investigation of or hearing on an ethics complaint. Again, I think we can clean up the language a little bit. Does anyone else have any problems generally with what's being said here?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Current or past officers and employees shall not retaliate against an individual in employment, benefits, or contracting as a result of that individual. I think we can just, well, you tell me what you guys think. I don't. Employees shall not retaliate against an individual as a result of that individual making an ethics complaint or
Yeah.
providing truthful
Yep.
information. Do
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
want to get rid of in
that's
employment,
better.
benefits, or contracting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
this-
because retaliate, you're gonna have to retaliate at all under any circumstance, so.
Right.
it's not-
Exactly. I don't, so does so with the I highlighted thing that has been struck out, does anyone have any other changes that they would like to make specifically to whistleblower protection?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
A violation of confidentiality. It shall be a violation if current or past officers and employees who intentionally violate any confidentially requirement provided under the code. All right, we're gonna have to work on this one.
Right.
Let me just see
I'm
what,
not even sure what that means,
yeah,
as it reads.
violation of confidentiality. I think they took this one directly. It shall be a violation. For the record, I put up 32.9 on the screen, which is the specific section in the code.
Yep.
It should be a violation of the ethics code for any officer, employer, agency to intentionally violate any confidentiality requirement provided. Okay. All right. Shall be a violation
For current or
Yeah.
past officers and
Yeah.
employees.
for, get rid of that, current or past
or past
officers
officers and employees.
Mhm.
and employees to intentionally violate any confidentiality requirement provided
Under the ethics code, that makes sense.
for under the ethics code. All right.
Could you
With
just
those
say,
two-
could you just say under the ethics code?
Sure. Under the ethics code is more concise. With those changes, does anyone else have any other changes or any other comments about this particular section?
Nope.
No,
Okay.
no.
Additional specific violations. The Common Council may, from time to time, pass ordinances with the specific intent that said ordinances are to be incorporated into and enforced through the ethics process.
That seems like it could stand as
Yeah.
is.
I don't have any other issues with it. Does anyone else have any other thoughts besides Anne?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Fine.
Examples only. Violations of the code are not limited to the specific examples listed herein, may include other circumstances and actions that contravene the purpose and intent of the code. So basically what that's saying is what we've told the ordinance committee when we were going through the entire revision of the code of ethics, is that we cannot identify every single violation of this code. There are numerous fact patterns and so therefore we can't list everything. So we're letting people know that what we're identifying here are just examples and it's a non-exhaustive list.
Mhm.
Does anyone have any issues with this last bullet point?
No.
No.
Okay. So based on the fact that all of you have had a chance to take a look at, and I'm just going to highlight this first section too, so that I don't forget about it to change that. With those changes that we have identified, whether they're additions of language or the striking of language through strikeout and also through yellow highlights, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the changes to the PowerPoint slide 32.9? Following, if you do approve it, I will send you all an updated version of this after I make the changes. Does anyone want to move that, make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion for to approve the language changes in 32-9
Does
specific.
anyone second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. And if you all agree, either say aye or yes, or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Right, that's unanimous. Okay. Let me, I'm going to just stop share and then I'm going to save this one briefly. And then I will Move on to the next one. Revisions made at 3/28/24 meeting. Approved. Great. Okay, we can remove that one now. We'll go to the next one. I will share the screen. Just make sure there's still no one in attendance besides the panelists and the stenographer. All right, we're going out of order numerically, but I'm just going to the next one, which is it's only one PowerPoint slide. It's chapter 32, section 13, effective violation. I figure we'll start with the two easiest ones. And we'll see how far, if at all, we can get in 32.4, which would be the next one, which is, it's complicated, but it's much shorter than 32.12, as you probably have seen. It's 32.12 is like 10 PowerPoint slides long. Let me just pull up 32.13 and I'll show everyone what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and just show you what it looks like in the code before we move on here. There it is. Okay, so this is 32.13 effective violation, and as you can see, there's subsection A, B, C, D, E, and F. And I can always come back to it, but if you like, we can. I'll let you have a chance to look at the entire thing, and then we can discuss each of the bullet points again. Is everyone good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go through this again the same way we did the last one, and then we'll do each bullet point, and then we'll just move on. All right. So basically, this just talks about what happens if an ethics violation is brought, an ethics complaint is brought, and the investigating panel finds probable cause. It goes to a hearing board, and the hearing board finds that there was in fact an ethics violation. So as you can see, the first one, officers meaning elected or appointed, who violate the code of ethics may be censured, impeached, or removed from office. What does everyone think of that first statement? There is one thing that I thought we should add, but I'll let y'all digest that first.
Who does the censuring, impeaching, and removing?
I believe it's the Common Council.
Okay.
Yeah. The Board of Ethics has to report back their findings afterwards.
Okay. And by officer, we're talking about elected officials or appointed board members?
Correct. So that's what I was going to recommend is that we put officers and then in parentheses elected or appointed.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys make
Okay.
that decision. I know it's a defined term, but some people are more savvy about reading these things, and some people will know that it's a defined term and others will not.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it should be
Spelled out a little bit.
spelled out a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's not too wordy and everything. I'm just going to put it in yellow so everyone can see that change. Okay, so the second one says employees of an agency who violate the code of ethics may be censored or disciplined accordingly, which may include demotions or discharge. So obviously, we're now talking about city employees. Obviously, there's other things that can happen besides demotions or discharge, but again, we're not giving an exhaustive list here, just
Mhm.
some examples for everybody. Does anyone have any thoughts about this particular bullet point?
Nope, I think it's pretty clear.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
Okay. The city may recover any damages incurred by the unethical conduct of an individual, which is a defined term, through civil action. So obviously, depending on what the result is, as you can see further down, if there was a contract that was achieved through unethical behavior, that decision could be voided and the contract could be lost, and that could delay projects. So that's just an example of potential damages. So we're just letting people know that there is an avenue for monetary or civil recourse by the city, and just to let everyone know what they're getting into if they decide to do something like this. Does anyone have any issues with this bullet point?
That seems clear.
Okay.
I agree.
Next
Yeah.
one. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. Next bullet point, any violations committed will be placed in the officer or employee's personnel file. So again, this is another potential effect that wasn't identified above, either for elected or appointed officers or employees, where it could go in your personnel file. I think it's pretty clear, but does anyone have any thoughts or comments? Do you want to put elected or appointed in there after officer?
I think we've already defined it above, so I
Right.
think it
Yeah.
makes sense to, people will know.
Okay. Anybody else with any other comments?
No,
Okay. Next one, the validity of any actions or decisions that were, let's change that. Affected by a violation of the Code of Ethics will be determined by general principles of Connecticut law.
Makes sense.
Does anybody
Yeah.
have any thoughts about that?
That seems clear.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, when there is, if probable cause is found and it goes to a hearing board, the 3 members of the Board of Ethics who then serve on the hearing board, who hear the case, can rely on staff, which would be me or somebody else in the law department, to guide and provide you with thoughts about the general principles of Connecticut law and how they apply. Again, the hearing board is not a trial. The rules of evidence are a little bit more lax, but still there are principles that we should follow. And so that's what it's talking about here, in case anyone had any questions about that. Next bullet point, a fine of up to $250 per violation may be imposed on an officer or employee found in violation of the Code of Ethics, and may be in addition to other discipline that we've identified above. So again, another effect is there's a monetary fine potentially.
Okay.
Does anybody have any thoughts about that particular bullet point?
Who imposes the fine? The common council or the whoever
Well, I believe it would be the
gives
hearing
out the
board.
discipline?
I believe it would be the hearing board, but then that would have to be approved by the council.
Okay.
One of the things that you'll see when you look at 3212 is if somebody is identified as somebody who violated the Code of Ethics and they hire counsel and they're successful in their defense, they can request the common council to make a vote to compensate them for either all of or a part of their legal fees in the defense of the case. So logically speaking, to me, it would be the common council that would be the final make the final determination, but I think it's the hearing board that would make the recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it needs to say in here who's gonna,
Right.
make that determination, but that was just my own curiosity.
No, it's a fair question. Any other thoughts on this bullet point before we go to the last part of 3213?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Any contracts or rulings that have been influenced by a violation may be voided. Again, this is I think it's a little understated. People don't tend to focus on this, but for example, I'll go back to the example I gave where,
Right.
somebody commits an ethical violation in providing a contract to, a family member or something like that, which we'll see in 32.4 next, conflicts of interest. The threat, hanging over everybody is that contract can be undone if
Mhm.
if it's found to be a violation, which can be a big deal not only for the city because it delays projects and things like that, but it's also a big deal for the people who might have benefited from the contract improperly.
Yeah.
That's just the example that pops into my
Right.
head. Just for everyone's backstory here, backdrop. Does anyone have any comments about this particular bullet point?
Nope, it seems clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So Pat, you made the motion on 32.9. Would either Michelle, Ann, or Catherine like to make a motion to approve the changes that we've made to 32.13 and make this to be a final version of this PowerPoint?
Brian,
Yes.
one thing.
Yes.
We're still seeing the other, on your sharing of the screen. I just need
Right.
to show the change
Right.
that you made so that we can look at them before you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Your screen is still showing that when you pulled up the whole, code of ethics.
Code. Yeah.
Oh,
If you
I'm
could
still
share
showing
the
the
other
code?
screen.
Slide.
Yeah, we're seeing
Yeah.
that,
Oh, I'm
right.
sorry. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. I just, we just wanna, I want us
thought
to
I was
look
the
at
only one. I
changes
was
before
like,
we
wait a
approve.
minute.
How's that? Can you all see it now?
Yes,
Yes.
thank
Okay.
you.
So,
Before
Pat,
we
you
say yes.
did the first motion. Does either Michelle, Ann, or Catherine want to make a motion to approve the changes? And again, the changes that were made was, and I'll just so everyone can see it. Someone had, when striking that and just making affected, but there were no other changes besides what you see in yellow right now.
I will make a motion to approve the 32.13 effective violation changes.
Okay, Michelle made the motion. Would either Catherine or Ann like to second that?
I second that motion.
Okay, that was
Mhm.
Catherine.
Yes.
Thank you. And now if we could have a vote on all four of you, if everyone agrees with these changes, please raise your hand or just say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, so we got 2 down. Let me just save it real quick and then we'll move on. Okay. So now we have 2 choices. We have either 32.4, which is a little bit shorter. I tend to think it's a little bit less logical than 32.12, but 32.12 is very long. I think easier to get through, quicker to get through, but I think 32.4 is perhaps something that we might be able to finish with, I don't want to keep, you guys are all volunteers. I don't want to keep you longer than we have to. And 32.12 is probably going to be a meeting unto itself. If you'd like to do 32.4 next, just let me know and I'll put it up on the screen.
I think that's fine.
That
Yeah,
sounds,
that sounds
Yeah,
good.
that's fine.
All right, so 32.4, conflicts of interest. Again, this is it's 3. This is probably the one that we're going to run into the most with advisory opinions, people just having questions so that they don't violate the code. So just generally speaking, I think the more information we have on here, the better it is. It's a little bit more complicated than most of the sections, and it's going to be easier, I think, for whichever one of you is making the presentation to have more information on there. And I think it's easier for people to digest because this is about as much legalese as you're going to find in here. You can't have conflicts of interest without. So I'll just say that, and then I'll start in if everyone's ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Conflicts of interest. This section describes any actions, whether indirect or direct, that may cause conflicts of interest for officers or employees. Now, because we're starting again with a new PowerPoint, would you like me to put in appointed or elected here?
Yes.
Yes.
Appointed, elected, or appointed. Besides that change, which I will highlight in yellow right now, does anyone else have any other thoughts about this particular bullet point before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Direct conflicts arise when you act on a matter from which you receive a financial benefit or an improper personal impact, non-financial. So I think the first part of this is pretty clear. You guys, somebody receives money because they, or they're have a vested interest in the company that's trying to get the financial benefit from the city, and so therefore they benefit. Let me just pull up 32.4 to see the second part of this, because it seems like whoever did this probably tracked 32.4. All right. Didn't want to do that for now. Let me just read you what 32.4 says quickly. This is from the code itself. A conflict of interest arises when there is a direct or indirect personal or financial interest of an officer or employee, immediate family member, immediate family, or business associate in the outcome of an official act or action or any other matter pending before the officer or employee or before the public body in which the officer or employee holds office or is employed. A conflict of interest may include, but is not limited to, the following forms. The reason I wanted to read you that was that last part. I think it might be important in here at some point to identify that this is not an exhaustive list.
Mhm.
I'll put this back up the screen when I can, but I think for now, I'm just going to leave it up so I can have the code next to this PowerPoint, and then I'll put it back up at various points for you to all take a look at. I'm drafting up something real quick, and I'm going to pull it up right now and see what everyone thinks. Just because I wanted to stare at the language, and then you can tell me what everyone thinks about this. All right, share screen. Okay, so this is what I added when I was looking at both of them. Direct conflicts arise when you act on a matter from which you receive
Mhm.
direct conflicts arise when you act on a matter from which you receive a financial benefit or a non-financial benefit. I think the rest of this is kind of confusing, but I've stared at it a long time. What does everyone else think?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, yeah, because you're making it too complicated
Okay.
with the improper personal impact. That's
Okay. And again, we can't, we can discuss this when someone is putting together the PowerPoint YouTube video about perhaps we can come up with an example of a non-financial benefit. But for now, I think it's easier for someone to read. Improper personal impact is very difficult to understand.
Mhm.
And then I'm just going to bear with me 1 second. I'm going to do the same thing again to look at the next part of this. Indirect conflicts arise when the financial benefit, I'm going to make the change again, or non-financial benefit is received by an immediate family member or business associate. Yeah, okay, it's similar to what's tracking there. And so I'll pull this up and show everyone what I'm thinking about, and then everyone can comment. Financial benefit or indirect conflicts arise when the financial benefit or non-financial benefit. So what I was thinking about was getting rid of improper personal impact, non-financial,
Yep.
Mhm.
similar to what we did before, and just say indirect conflicts arise when the financial benefit or non-financial benefit is received by an immediate family member or a business associate. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah. And Brian, is
Yep.
business associate defined earlier in the
I
slides
was
as a
just
term?
getting ready to say that. Is
Good
it defined
question.
in the code somewhere?
Let me take a look.
Because business associate could be
Right.
so many things and so
Business
far
is- yeah.
removed.
So business associate is not a defined term. What I would say is that, I don't remember, we're talking about, this process started about either 6 or 7 years ago that we were going through all this. I don't know what the decision was about whether business associate was defined and they removed it, whether they were having difficulty defining it. But what I would say is that even if it's not a defined term, if it's a defined term, it makes it easier, and perhaps that's something that we need to take a look at about whether we should define business associate. I think as it is for now, and we could always make this change later. I think this is fair warning to somebody that,
Okay.
you know, for just as a very rough example, city employee has a business on the side. They're, let's say, a landscaping company, and they go to bid on doing landscaping work for the city, but it's not them doing it, it's their business associate. They never come to any of the meetings,
I
but
see.
then they vote. They're still, I mean, it's their business associate. They have a financial interest. So that's probably not the best example, but I think this business associate thing, although not defined, I think gives people fair warning that they have to be careful.
So I think you almost just defined it by saying they have that person has a financial interest in it or some sort of interest in, I think that's almost, if we want to go the route of defining it.
Yeah.
Like, it almost needs to be like you're going to benefit from it in some way.
So
Right, whether financial or not financial, you're still
Yep.
gonna
Correct.
benefit, so it's.
I do
Just-
agree. I do agree with everyone. I think that this is why it's always nice to have fresh people on and have new eyes and new thoughts. I think it's a good idea to define business associate at some point in the future. We can certainly start the process. Just so you know the process, we would make a recommended change, which would be the definitional section. We would then have to make substantive changes wherever business associate is located in the code, and then provide that to the ordinance committee. They would then have their chance to comment. If they approve, if they say we like it, they could send it on to common council. If they don't, they could send it back to our board and say, we don't like this, make these changes, or come back to us when you make more changes. We have problems with this. So it's a back and forth, but we could make a change and add a definition. And then we would just have to change business associate to capitalize business associate if it becomes a defined term, but that
Okay.
would be the process. We don't have to wait to start this process. We could start to look at this at our next meeting. And then we could we could always amend this PowerPoint slide, or perhaps add an addendum to it, say, hey, conflict of interest 32.4 updated, and then somebody could say, this is what we meant by business associate, or something like that. So we can do that if that's where the board is interested in going. I think it's a good idea to define it, because otherwise it's a very gray area and then people can argue over it.
Mhm.
Again, it might be, this is a general definition, and perhaps we could indicate in the definition that this does not include all business associations, because it's impossible to define everything. Or we could say, hey, listen, we're defining it and this is what it is. You have to have there's a certain level of distance before it becomes not really a business association. That would be potentially a conflict, but that's for another day. We could certainly talk about that, but yes, I do agree that perhaps it would be more clear if we had to define business associate as a defined term.
Okay.
Besides that, does anyone have any issue with this bullet point, the last one on this first page?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think that this is, this first page is more, it's difficult, even though there's less bullet points, it's more difficult because it's a little bit more vague and theoretical. Now we're getting into the times where, these are kind of the examples, again, non-exhaustive list
Mhm.
of what a conflict is. So we can go through them. I think we're going to go through a little bit quicker than otherwise, unless there's some language issues here that I have not had a chance to look at. Any actions that influence another employee, officer, or agency to appoint an immediate family member to a city position. Okay. So we might need some context here. I'm just going to take it off screen for a second. I think we might need some context because, let's see, where is it? Let me just pull it up here. I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. Okay, so the first two, I just want to double check that. The first two are not identified in the code itself. That's why I was stopping a little bit because I didn't recognize them.
Mhm.
So let's maybe look at these first two a little bit harder. Any actions that influence another officer, employee, officer, or agency to appoint an immediate family member to a city position. I don't have a problem with that, because that's nepotism or
Yeah.
uh, quid pro quo maybe. What does everyone else think about that first bullet point?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. What is, I mean, city position meaning, like an appointed board are we talking about an employment position? We don't really know, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Any,
arguably
any
it could either
position in the
be,
city, an employee?
I think it could arguably be someone, potentially being appointed to a board or a commission.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's sort of all encompassing then for city employees, boards, commissions, it's all encompassing language, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to be,
Yeah, no, I think
that's
it's
why I
fine.
wanted to look at this a little bit closer because this one's not there. But again, it's pretty clear in the code that what I think it's 8 examples we're providing on our not exhaustive list.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other comments about or want to clean up this first bullet point?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bullet point number 2, any actions involving personnel that would affect an immediate family member, whether a financial benefit is obtained or not.
Hmm.
I don't quite understand or know what that means.
Yeah.
Let me just double check and make sure that that's not one of the 8 and they just didn't take this out of order. I'll be back with you in a second.
Almost similar to the first one.
Yeah. I think it's a little duplicative as well, and I don't think it's as drafted as well. I think it might be the second one, so I'm gonna put it back up on the screen and I'm gonna cut and paste it in so you can all take a look at that. And then we can. So just for the record, what I put in was one of the 8 examples of a conflict that we have in the code.
Hmm.
It's almost like they took this and tried to make these first two fit that whole thing.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to combine them. Or make the second one simpler. Why not just say any actions involving a personnel decision that would affect an immediate family member?
Yeah, because these are all first personnel decisions, right? Hiring,
Yeah.
promoting, demoting, disciplining.
Yeah, this is why I said it. It doesn't, so it says whether a financial benefit is obtained or not. Okay, fine. If you don't say that, then I think the assumption should be that it doesn't matter whether it's whether it's a financial benefit or not. How does everyone feel about that?
So-
What I'm getting rid of here.
Here's I think that that's fine. The only other thing that I would say
Yep.
is perhaps, do we feel like we should say any actions directly or indirectly? See how it had in that.
Yeah.
What
No,
you cut and
that's-
pasted,
Mhm.
because then it sort of encompasses, whether you're directly
Right.
or you influence someone else to do it, it's the same. Then that, that speaks to the first bullet here, because you're influencing someone else is the indirect way you would do that.
And would you want to put any actions directly or indirectly in the first bullet point then as well?
Probably.
How does everyone else?
I think it
I
would be
feel
more
it should be.
consistent.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely,
So-
that's what I was gonna say.
So I've
Consistency.
yeah, I mean, I put in some changes to the first two bullet points. Why doesn't everyone, and then everyone take a look at those first two bullet points with those changes. Take a look at it, and then if everyone's okay with that, then I'll delete the thing I just cut and pasted in from the code because we won't need it anymore, and we'll move on to the third one. Or make any other changes that people suggest.
I think it needs to be decisions with an S.
Involving personnel decisions
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. How does everyone else feel about the those two bullet points?
Looks good.
Okay. All right, so let me get rid of that. Okay. Hopefully the rest of them are a little bit easier. Provide financial benefit, and benefit I think should be capitalized because I believe that's a defined term, but let me double
Mhm.
check. Yes, that is a defined term. Okay, so provide financial benefit, and we'll just strike that. Okay. Provide financial benefit to a business operated by an immediate family member. I think that one's pretty clear, but what does everyone else think?
I think it's very clear, yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
That might be the clearest one we have so far.
It's the best one.
Yeah. All right, next one. Participate in business or transactions that may impair your judgment or course of action
Course of
in the
action.
proper completion of your official duties.
Participate.
I'm not even sure what they're saying.
Right. Let me just pull up.
So transactions that may impair your judgment.
Let's see. Let me see.
Are
So
they
it's
saying
about
to-
being
that would
influenced?
unduly influence you? Is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah, I think they're taking it from this one. So I'll bring this one in, and then everyone could take a look and see what your thoughts are. I'm going to cut and paste it in. This is from the code again, from the same area we've been talking about. Okay. So you can see what I think what they're trying to say, and then maybe we can wordsmith it.
I think you can change impair to influences your judgment or course of action. I think it's the impair part that
Yeah.
is weird.
What does everyone else think of that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, now that I see it. Mhm.
All right. Participate in business or transactions that may influence your judgment.
Influence your judgment, man.
May influence your judgment. Or impair your judgment.
influence your course of action or impair your judgment, is that what it needs
Yeah,
to say?
impair your judgment.
Yeah. Or, and influence, you need to change, move, influence your.
Course of
course of
action.
Oh, your course, okay, I can get rid of course of action. It may influence your, oh, it may influence your course of action or impair your.
Or impair your judgment.
Okay, no,
impair your
fair enough.
judgment.
Your course
Yeah.
of action. Okay, we'll move that. Move that up here. And we'll get rid of judgment there and move course of action away from here. So participate in business or transaction that may influence your course of action or impair your judgment in the proper completion of your official duties. I think that's better.
Yeah,
How
better.
does everyone else think about
Yeah.
that? What do you think about that?
I think we just moved
Everyone
it
okay with that
down,
one?
but yes, it's fine.
Okay, all
We
right,
ended up just moving things around and saying the same thing, but I think it flows better.
all right. We need to get some easy ones here. You shall not participate in any potential matters in which you or an immediate family member has any interest in the matter or would be likely to gain or lose any benefit that is not common to the general public.
Okay.
All right. Despite the
Yeah.
length of this, I think that's pretty clear.
Yes,
That is like textbook conflict of interest right there.
yep.
Do you, excuse me, do you
Yep.
need the you at the beginning
No.
or
We could think we just shall.
shall, because everything else starts with a provide,
Yep.
participate, shall not participate.
Yep. Shall not participate in any potential matters in which you or an immediate family member. Okay. Yep. Grant any special treatments above which are generally available to the public. Vague, but it's in the code. Any issues with that one?
No.
No.
Okay. Receive any special treatments above which are generally available to the public or to other officers or employees. The best thing I can come up with as an example, if I was trying to explain this to somebody, is it's not local, but a member of Congress getting information about something that's going to affect the economy, and then they sell stock or something because of it. That would be the example that I would use. Special information that the general public does not have at this time.
Okay.
All right, so this is the third. Does anyone else have an issue? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have moved. Does anyone have an issue with that last one?
No.
No,
With the special treatment? Okay. That's just the best example I could come up with on the fly. All right, this is the last part of 32.4. Any actions that provide personal or financial benefits that are no greater. All right, so this is all right. I think what we need to do is, one other thing I think we need to do is this is going back to the second page where we're talking about the conflicts of interest. And I'm just going to add some language real quick, and then I'll have you take a look at it. I should have done this before and it escaped me. All right. Okay. And we'll come back to the other one in a moment, but let's get rid of this second page 2 of this slide. So what I added was right here at the top. This is letting people know that this particular slide is talking about things that you shall not do. And that shouldn't be. Prohibited action should not be.
Mhm.
Prohibited actions are transactions, and it lists all the things that we just talked about that you shall not do. These are the examples saying, please don't do those things, or you're potentially violating the code of ethics. Does anyone have an issue with that first? You can get rid of that. Just put it right there. Okay. And there's going to be a similar change at the top of page 3. So just bear with me 1 second. I want to get that up there, and then we'll start on these. Okay, let's put this back up. Okay. It's coming back up right now. So this third page is when conflicts of interest do not arise. And so I figured we could just let people know that this is totally different than the page before. Any issues with what is highlighted in yellow? Conflicts.
Mhm. Do
And
not,
if not, then we can go on to the bullets.
conflicts of interest do not
Yeah,
arise?
do not arise. Thank you. Any other changes or revisions?
No?
Okay. All right, so we'll do these. I think we'll do this this last page and then we'll call it, we'll end the meeting after you guys hopefully approve these changes, and then we can stare down 3212 at our next meeting.
Mhm.
Any actions that provide personal or financial benefit that are no greater than any other person's generally affected by the decision. And then it has, so we should probably move these in a little bit. Because either the sub decisions.
Okay.
All right, so these are all the items where people are generally affected no differently than anybody else. Does anyone have an issue with that first main bullet point?
No.
Okay. All right, so the first one where there wouldn't be a conflict, employment by contract to a person that is available to members of the general public. If the contract is not before your agency and the relationship is disclosed in writing to the city clerk. Meaning everyone has a chance to do it. It's not before your agency, and the person who's applying for it says, hey, by the way, my brother works in a different department, but I'm letting you know.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2, transactions involving property between you and the city, as long as the transaction is approved by an independent source. I guess like if you were going to sell the property to the city or whatever it might be.
Right.
Contracts between you or an immediate family member and the city that occur before hiring or appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Employment of an officer or employee through a publicly posted document as required by law.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes it.
Serving on the board of a nonprofit charity, provided that you make written disclosure of the relationship to the city clerk, and you shall take no action with regard to the nonprofit or charity. So this one ended up costing us a couple meetings when we were trying to get 32-4 approved by the ordinance committee, because many members of the ordinance committee and the common council serve on nonprofits, for example, like Lockwood Matthews Mansion. And so their concern was that somebody who's has insight and valuable information and can, is perhaps an expert in some field where the nonprofit needs help, and they're being hamstrung by this particular section. So that's why we had this in there, because members of the common council were concerned that they couldn't serve on nonprofits and they wanted to. So that's why that's in here. Does anyone have an issue with that bullet point?
No.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Any programs or perks offered to you by the city?
Can you just give an example, Brian? What?
Let me I was going to say of all of them, this was the one that I disliked the most. So let me just take a look and see if it's in the code. And
I wonder, I mean, would it be something, that's offered to all members of the general public?
yeah, okay. So this is so an officer, so section 8 of this particular subsection of 32-4 says an officer or employee participating in any program offered by the city to employees or officers generally, such as programs as discount purchase programs, health and education programs, or recreational events. I guess the example for some of us would be like CLEs. Sometimes the city, like for example, I know the Common Council has brought in FOIA experts to discuss freedom of information stuff, and I can use it for CLE credit.
Oh,
Otherwise, I'd
gotcha.
have to go pay for it. So I think that's what they're talking about here.
Yeah.
Any programs or perks offered to you by the city perhaps we should just give a quick example, like example, an educational program. Just so it doesn't seem like it's so, how does everyone feel about that? Just for a further explanation, if everyone's okay with that, otherwise I'll remove it.
That's okay.
Okay.
I think it's helpful.
Yeah, it's again, whenever if someone were to ask you about the code of ethics, I think one of the main things to stress, one of the first things to stress is that what is in there is not everything, and it's a non-exhaustive, when there is a list, it's not exhaustive.
Right.
Mhm.
Never seen
Final bullet point, city's ordinance list employees may represent the city for labor contract negotiation or grievance procedures. Basically, for example, there are union, well, this is different. They're saying ordinance list employees. This comes directly out of the code. Again, I can't remember 6 or 7 years ago why it was in there. I don't believe this was changed from the last time. But what I can tell you is that certain members of the unions represent the union during labor contract negotiations and also during grievance procedures. Some of the employees are, officers of the union, and so therefore they either do those things or they appoint others within their union, is my understanding. I don't have an issue with that. Usually the union would approve those things anyway, so there has to be a vote by the union. So I don't have an issue with that, but if you guys are concerned about it or you have any revisions, please let me know.
I have no concern.
No.
So we have, it's a three pages, which you've all had a chance to read and comment on. And we have the proposed changes. The proposed changes are additions that are highlighted in yellow. Revisions are highlighted in yellow, and then we have a strike through lines on them, so you can see that. We've had, I think, we've had Pat and Michelle.
Can I just, I'm sorry, can I make, we talked about earlier, when we started talking about this, putting in something that said that these are not exhaustive lists.
Yep.
Where, I mean, I might just suggest that where we've put, on the second page, the
Right.
titles that you've put in yellow at the top.
Yep.
Perhaps next to those, you could put, not, some language that says that these are not all inclusive.
Right.
Or
So let
exhaustive
me
list.
pull that back up for you then.
Sorry.
Bear with me.
I
No,
know
it's
you were ready
fine.
to vote, but we talked about that. I think we'd love to put that back in.
No, let's make sure we get it right. I think we actually lost Catherine.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
I don't know when we lost her. So we can't vote on 32-4.
okay.
But what we can do is, we have, already, when we had a quorum, I'm just gonna make it clear for the record. We had a quorum when we discussed 32-9 and 32-13. We have to find out exactly when we lost Catherine. If we lost Catherine very recently, then what I'd like to do at the next meeting is we have these highlighted in yellow. We can bring it back. When we have our quorum, we can have Catherine and the rest of you vote on to approve 32-4, but we can't do it right now because we don't have Catherine.
Okay.
So because we lost Catherine, let me just see if there's anything else here. Okay, so we're gonna need to adjourn, so we don't have a quorum, but can someone move to adjourn the meeting now that we don't have a quorum?
Okay. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, and would one of you second that?
Second that.
Okay, and just for the record, I will forward to the entire board the approved changes that were made to 32-9 and 32-13, so everyone can see the final verdict, final versions of those. And we will revisit 32-4 at our next meeting so that we can vote on that. I won't make any other change. I'll save the changes that we have. And we can revisit that very quickly, and then we can move on to 32-12. And that will be the last one. And then I will email you all of the proposed changes, and you all have a chance to read them and digest them. And then if anybody has any issues with any of those, please let me know. We can bring them up at the meeting after that and discuss discuss those and make any final changes that need to be made, or answer any questions you might have about them. But for anyway, I know it's been a little bit over an hour-long meeting, so welcome to everyone who's new. Thank you for your service. Thank you for those who continue to serve. I appreciate your time here tonight. I think we did a lot. We did more tonight than we've done in the last year. And I appreciate it. And I'll be in contact with all of you, and have a good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
Be safe.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.